Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another day of Scraptember. Our prompt today is to do something horizontal, and I am also playing along with Mix It Up Monday today, which is a mixed media hop to use mixed media in whatever way possible. And we are using this sketch for Mix It Up Monday, and it is created by Brandy Joe, and I really liked it, but I'm going to rotate it so that I can meet my horizontal commitment for Scraptember. So I just did one rotation to the right, so clockwise, and then I'm using this paper from Studio Light, and it's art by Marlene. I don't know anything other than that. It has been in my stash for quite some time, and I'm not even really sure where I got it from. So I was inspired by this paper to because it's got the hexagons already built into it. So I am fussy cutting them, and I'm going to use this upper left hand corner across to the right hand side, and then I will have some horizontal strips as well to coincide with the sketch that I've got there in the corner and to go with the prompt for Scraptember. I am also doing a horizontal arrangement of my photos. They're just going to be 3 smaller photos in a row right across the middle, and so that is also horizontal. I'm not sure if the sketch was intended to have your embellishments horizontal, your background horizontal, or your photos. I think you can take it however you want, and it is just supposed to inspire you in some way. So I was just inspired to go ahead and start with my photos and then to build some strips. And I'm really liking the way that this ends up coming out with a little bit of mixed media in the background. I am just using one of my blending brushes, and I'm just rubbing some Distress Oxide ink in Candied Apple, kind of making a bit of a haze or a, not really a glow, but having some of it peeking out from behind this pattern paper. Now the pattern paper has a lot of mixed media going on it already, so I don't have to do a whole lot, but I do want to do some. Now the mixed media on the background paper does have some yellow in it. It also has some blue and some grayy colors, and then the black. So I am pulling in several colors to go with that. The color I'm adding on right here is Pumice Stone, which is kind of a grayy color. It is a little bit more towards the brown than the gray, so I will end up pulling in a little bit of hickory smoke to gray it up a little bit more. I don't want my background to be perfectly white or anything, so adding just a little bit is working well for me. And then also when I first started adding the gray, I didn't actually bring in any additional gray color. It's just whatever is left over on my gray brush, which I have not cleaned. So I don't clean my brushes very often, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's just how I go. And then I thought I would add some of the gray and some of the brown looking colors through this stencil. The stencil is from the Crafters Workshop. It is called Chicken Wire Reversed. So you're actually getting the chicken wire, not the insides of the wire, as your image. And I started applying them with my blending brush, but they're very delicate, so I went to these pouncing tools, which I got on Amazon. I'll put a link down below for those, and they work really well for these types of stencils, the ones that are very delicate, that lift up easily even when you're just using a brush versus a sponge applicator. And so I'm just going in with some brown, which I believe I'm using some ground espresso Oxide ink, some hickory smoke Oxide ink, and then some black soot regular Distress ink. And I'm kind of just randomly haphazardly going over it because I don't want them to be any one color. I want them to kind of have like a bit of depth and variation to them. So that's what I'm using. Now I am pulling some of these strips of paper, and I am going to use those as my horizontal strips. I am going to add one to the bottom since I've already got some at the top, and I am going to actually add a little bit more at the top as well. Well, I'm not adding more papers at the top. I'm adding some of this black acrylic paint because there is a big, strong, like heavy-handed black strip across the top of paint. I'm adding it in other places as well because it looked a little lonely up there by itself. And so I thought I would go ahead and bring that to be a little bit more in the forefront and a little bit more bold. I am backing all of my photos with some black paper, just having a very thin reveal of the black paper. Pardon me. Part of that is because I normally print my pictures with a white border, but at one point I turned off the border printing for a specific project and I kind of forgot to turn it back on, and I printed a few photos without it. And so I definitely want a border on here. And I thought, you know, these photos didn't already have a white border. I'm going to go ahead and add a black border to them. And I think it's going to help them pop off of this page quite a bit. And I'm really happy with the result because it does in fact make them pop off the page rather than kind of get lost in the background, because since there's already so much going on in the background, I didn't want that to happen. Now the photos that I am working with are 3 photos of the little guy that I take care of. And this is his first painting. It's actually on canvas. We haven't done a lot of art quite yet just because of his age, but we're getting to that point where art's going to be a little bit more of a thing for him. And so this was one of the first times he's actually doing some finger painting, and I just gave him colors that were neighbors on the color wheel so that they would play well together no matter how he mixed them. He's not going to get just a muddy brown color. He's going to have quite bold colors. It almost looks like he's played in his mustard and ketchup, and that's okay. The main reason we did this on canvas rather than on paper is his family has another family that they're friends with that host this kind of like art party type of a deal, but it's kind of very tongue-in-cheek, bring your you know, not so great art type of a thing to share, or something funny or something like that. And so they always encourage the kids to bring stuff too. So all 3 of the kids made some sort of artwork to take to this very tongue-in-cheek art party. They don't take themselves super seriously. It was all in good fun and in good nature. And that was kind of like the whole benefit of it. You didn't really have to worry if your art really was terrible or if it was great. It was all fun. So I decided I wanted to lighten up some of the areas in between my stenciling here. So I took some white acrylic paint and just dry brushed it on. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to lighten up some of these other areas as well. And I continued to just dry brush it on in varying areas just to kind of give it a little bit more of more white space basically, and to lighten up some of the colors that I had going on. So I'm quite happy with the way that it turned out. It's very different. This is a little bit more messy than I normally go, but I'm good with it. I think it looks pretty cool and it's very different. And then I'm going to add some white splatter by just adding a little white paint, or I'm adding a little water to the white paint. I'm not adding white water to the paint. And then I'm adding some black Dilutions black marble paint, ink as well, to have some ink splatter. Now this is, I believe it's called Robin's Egg, and it is just some Nouveau drops. I think it's crystal drops if I remember correctly. And they've been in my stash for ages. I always forget to use my Nouveau drops. They're not high on my priority list or high on my list of things that I really enjoy using. So they kind of get left sitting on the shelf. But I thought, since I've already got so much going on, let's add a little more. This gray kind of has a bit of a blue to it, especially the kind of hexagon looking pieces on that background paper. They lean towards the blue, and so did that Nouveau drops. And so I just put them on my acrylic pad, and I dipped a piece of bubble wrap into it and kind of smushed it along on my page in varying areas. It doesn't add a lot of color, but it does add texture, and it's glossy, so you can definitely see it. Now the die that I just used there is from Altenew. I will put a link for it. The die actually cuts very well. Something's going on with my little die cutting machine. It's not cutting through greatly. It's not cutting through great. And anyway, it didn't cut all the way through that last one that I did, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to leave it because I'm going to put some hexagons over it anyway, so it's not going to show. And rather than sitting there trying to run it through again or fuss with it, I just left it where the center did not actually cut up. It's getting covered up. I am inking up all of these little hexagon pieces with some black soot distress ink. While I do that, don't forget we've got other people playing along with Mix It Up Monday. The link for the playlist is down below, as well as the list of people playing along. And then there is a playlist also for Scraptember. Scraptember does have a Facebook group you can go and join. I'll put a link for that down below as well, so that you can play along if you'd like. We've got prompts every day for the month of September, and they could be anything from, like today's horizontal, to no people in your photograph, or adding some texture or mixed media, all kinds of different things going on. So go and check that out, and maybe you'll be inspired by some of those prompts and want to play along. And then you have a place to also share your layouts. If that is something that you enjoy doing, you can share in the Scraptember Facebook group. Now, I am playing along here and there throughout the month of September. I'm not playing along every single day. I have some other commitments that I am just working on as well for October and then into November. So yeah, I needed a little extra time and had to not play along every day because of that. So this black piece of paper that I am cutting with this turquoise die is a die from Bramble Fox, and it is just a notebook edge type of die. And if you have a notebook edge punch, you could use that. You could actually pull out a piece of notebook paper, although it wouldn't be black. You could ink it up and make it black. There's lots of options on ways to get a very similar effect, but I happen to have this die, so that's what I decided to use. And then I'm going to use these acrylic handprints from MK's shop. I'm using the red one and the white one, and then a red splotch. And I'm liking the way that that looks. I also used my Paper Rose Jumbo die number 1. It is the number 1. It's not die number 1. It is the number 1 out of the number set, and I am using that for a portion of my title. I am also inking up all of these black pieces that I've die cut with a little bit of silver Catherine Pooler ink, just to kind of grunge them up a bit, because the whole layout is grungy, let's be real. So I'm embracing that and just grunging up my little pieces that I've die cut out of black paper. And then I'm using a little liquid glue to adhere everything down so it stays nice and put where I want it, and tucking in my little pieces behind the other paper layers, just so that everything stays where I want it, and so it adds a little bit of texture and interest to each one of these clusters. I'm going to go ahead and finally put my photos down, and I'm not quite done yet. I think I have one or two other things to do. I did cut the entire layout down by about 1/4 inch, and I backed it all on some black paper, which I think makes a nice frame around the outside of the whole thing and brings it all together. And it really does help the photos to stand out as well, because it's you know, adding to the look of the framed photos with the black. And so I think that kind of just helps them to pop up a little bit more. And then I'm using a little bit of the glue dots in the mini size, and I am using those to adhere all of my acrylic pieces down. I just used a little bit of liquid glue to adhere my one. I probably should have popped that up onto some foam, but I didn't, and I'm going to just leave it as it is. I'm not going to try and pull it up and redo it. And then I pulled out these thickers that have this kind of a reddish shiny color to them, reddish black, and I am creating my title. It just says my first painting. I kind of played around with the placement of the word painting. I first had it underneath the number 1, but I like it here to the right of the number 1 better. And then there were some little X marks or plus marks in the same thicker package, and so I brought those up to the top to look like a little bit of stitching, and I'm liking how those look also. But I am using a little bit of extra adhesive to stick those down, because they don't want to stay, especially since they're so small. I'm kind of trusting that the actual thickers with the letters will stay. I didn't add more adhesive to those, but maybe I should have. I might go back and do that. But that is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. It is kind of a messy but fun one, and I think it'll look great in his album, and he'll be happy with it down the road. He doesn't know anything about it right now, but at some point, you know, he will enjoy his album, I hope. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions or comments, leave those down below, and come back and see me again real soon with another video. I know I'll be here on Wednesday, so come back then, and have a great day. Bye-bye.